Hello, I'm Kate. Welcome back to my channel. So I actually just sent my brother the second chapter of our D&D novelization that we've been working on together. So basically, I take the notes while we're playing the D&D game. David is our GM, our game master, our dungeon master DM, if you prefer. And he knows a lot more of the lore. He's the one that's really doing the world building ahead of the game, and also the one who's, you know, having to come up with more on the fly as Robert and I control our characters within the game. It's very fun. I'm doing the novelization work, so I take notes while we play, and then as I finish the chapters, I'm sending them over to David to just make sure that it fits within the game structure that he imagined, the world that he imagined. And it's been really fun so far. I got such a sweet message back about his thoughts on the first chapter. So anyways, sent him the second one. So excited. Gonna take a celebratory sip. But today's video is another writing vlog slash Q&A, taking the questions that other writers have asked from that same writing goals and aspirations questionnaire I did, geez, a while ago. Maybe I should do another one. So my hope with all of these is that as I answer the questions, you will also answer them in a comment down below. And we're going to start off with a really easy one that seems like it wouldn't be writing related. However, I'm very curious to know if several of us writers have the same answer to this one. Yes. But the first question is, what is your favorite animal? And growing up, mine was always the cheetah. I also liked dolphins. This is obviously an elephant. I also loved dolphins. I had a poster that was just like dolphins in all sorts of rainbow colors. I was a very cool kid. Also narwhals. My dad and I used to play this game where we would try and name as many animals as we could, starting with a certain letter in the alphabet, and we'd go on, and narwhal was the one I got him on one year. He was not aware that narwhals were a thing, or he just pretended in order to make me feel smart as a kid. Either way, I was here for it. So I guess, yes, cheetahs, dolphins, narwhals. I'm just trying to find all of the animals I have now. Rafiki Scar. I guess this is a good time to show you that my surroundings from the time that I was cleaning out my closet. I still want to fix my bookshelves up a bit, but hooray. There's so much space now. So please do comment down below. Let me know what your favorite animal is. The next question is, what is one thing you know now that you wished you knew before you started writing? Oh, this is such a tough one. Take another sip. I think maybe that it's not a race. Speaking of my closet clean out, that is full of notebooks that I filled out with stories, with journal entries from when I was growing up. And for some reason, I was one of those kids that was dead set on achieving by a certain age. I was like, of course, I'm going to publish a novel by the time I'm 16, and then 16 passed. It was like, obviously, I'll publish it by the time I'm 20, and then 20 passed. And I don't know at what age I finally like got it together and realized achieving by a certain age is not a goal worth setting, one, but two, not really a healthy measure of success. Let's just say it took somewhere around the mid-20s, but this was much more present when I was in my teens and growing up before I'd ever finished my first novel. And I wish I could go back and shake that little girl and tell her that it's gonna be okay. But I had heard that advice before, and it did not click. And it's clicked now, but it didn't click then. And I wish there was a way I could like infuse that knowledge, but alas. So anyways, that's maybe the one thing I wished I knew, or maybe the one lesson that I wish I would have listened to when I heard other writers speak. We see a lot of the flashy deals, and they're made all that more flashy when it's someone who's really young. There's been tons of authors who have come out and talked about how that was actually a detriment to them. You know, it's just not worth the heartache, I guess. And I did have a lot of heartache over that for a long time. I'm trying to think of a more practical answer, but I don't know that I have one. So please do comment down below. What's the one thing you wish you knew before you started writing? Maybe even before you started seriously writing could be a good one. But let me tell you what I'm hoping to accomplish during this writing vlog. So I just finished the 3,543 words during the live stream today. Over on Twitch, we shall go to episode 3. I have 3,408 words, and this is more or less first draft of the chapter, but based off of my session 3 notes. So my hope is that I will be able to edit episode 3 or chapter 3 and send it to my brother before I leave for Las Vegas. We're going on a trip starting on Thursday, very early in the morning. So like 5:55 a.m. is the flight. It's going to be hell. So my main goal is to, yes, finish this. I also got feedback from David on chapter 1. So I can see his comments here as he went along. He had a lot of really good suggestions, and so I'm excited to incorporate them back in, and maybe if I'm able to finish this first chapter, I could send it to someone before the flight. Someone that is not in game, because that's the big thing with this kind of project, and sending it to David specifically is it's great to get his feedback, and I really enjoy having David as an alpha reader just generally, but he's playing the game, he knows the characters, so I need to see if this sticks as well as I'm hoping it does, you know, sticks in the heart, this Buddy Thief story, as well as I'm hoping it does, but with people who are outside of the game, who aren't playing it. Can I do that by tomorrow? I suppose we shall see. Something I do want to do though is add notes from David's world building into my Campfire Blaze project. Because that's how I'm keeping track of it. So like this bit here, and David making the point that obviously we're not natives to the country, so I didn't really know it. We would, however, know it because we are arriving in it. There's lots of signs in different places. Open project. Now this video is not being sponsored by Campfire Blaze, though I have worked with them in the past. I do just really love it for my world building. So let us indeed go to the world and the locations and add some of those in here now. I've now added Aminus, the rubber duckling, and the Mylan Hans. As I go through the next chapter, I will add more locations. To be fair, some of these, like the Chancellor's Palace, I haven't added here, even though that's the predominant setting of the first chapter. Perhaps I should do that quite quickly because the Chancellor is going to become important over the course of the whole saga, shall we say. Yes, it's a saga. Chancellor's Palace. And I will add a character later explaining that, but my friend got me this rocket book thing for my birthday, so I've been playing around with it. Let's see. I have 1 page of notes. I've already done a couple others where I've uploaded them. So anyways, we're gonna go on to a new page. By the way, I should point out that I'm covered in band-aids because I got freaking eaten up by the mosquitoes today. But, ta-da, let me see, like show you how it works kinda. Someone's at the front door. Can you stop attacking your sister, please? Thank you. Zelda. There we go. Yay! A package. Anyways, basically you open up the Rocketbook app. You can see the notes I've already left myself. And then I take a picture and it scans the page for me. Wow! Let's go ahead and scan the other page. Hooray! And then locations, Google main folder. Ta-da! Woo! It's really cool because then it's supposed to be erasable. I actually did erase it the other day. You just wet one end, wipe it off, dry it off. And you know, it's supposed to be in theory better for the environment because you can just keep reusing it. So I really love that. My friend knows me very well. So now that I got some brainstorming down, I think it is time to answer another question. This person asked, what's the most useful tool that helps you get through the middle of your novel? And actually, this is when I tend to start outlining. So zero draft is often my process, though not always, as I've mentioned in recent sort of pseudo experiments. But usually when I'm zero drafting, the middle is when I start to outline. It's usually around the 60% mark where I'm just like, what where the fuck am I going with this? Like, I know where I want the last 95% to end up, but how do I get from 60 to 95%? That's a big chunk of the book. So basically, this is when I start asking myself some questions. So I'll put where the characters are, each character, including minor characters, and where they need to be at the end in my mind, and I actually start from the back and think, how are they gonna get there? What all needs to happen, either within their own mind, within their own heart, or like plot wise, that would have to happen to get them to here? That tends to answer a bunch of the questions for me. And I basically just write it all down for all of the characters in one notebook, and then I kind of sort of outline it along the way, and that serves as my outline. But other things to do is just to try different outlining methods, try the snowflake method, try reading Save the Cat, and just seeing what those things say for this percentage of the way through when you're stuck. I find that even if you don't follow it word for word or by the letter, like some people would perhaps recommend you do, you will still get a lot out of it. And I recommend trying multiple methods. Any method you can find, just kind of get yourself asking those questions and then answering them. And that'll help you through the middle. Yay. So because I had plans to get up early in the morning, it means I didn't sleep well. I think my brain just gets excited and is like, don't forget, don't forget, don't forget. And so I not only don't forget, I don't sleep well, right? I keep waking up. So everything's fine, went to the gym. I do want to show you, opposite my gym is a Whataburger. I haven't had Whataburger in a while. This is a very dangerous location. I think we're gonna get Whataburger. It just sounds so good. A honey butter chicken biscuit. Do 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 do. There's like no line, which never happens at this Whataburger. Okay, we're gonna go. All right, fortunately or unfortunately, I got saved because the actual like pillar, you know, the ones where it's like you can only be so high up, your car can only be so tall in order to enter the drive-thru. It was falling down, and like 2 men were trying to hold it. And so they put cones, so I guess I'm saved. Go ahead, girls. Good job. So the next question is, how do you personally edit your prose to make it more engaging and atmospheric? And this is a great one for this vlog because I will be editing. So hopefully I can show you along the way. But for me, it's worth pointing out that this changes based off of the genre that I'm writing. So certain things I find worth describing will be different. Stop attacking your sister. She just laid down. I describe different things if I'm writing romance versus if I'm writing fantasy. Also, some descriptions will depend on what the character notices too. So anyways, you can see from this first line how I'm trying to describe the actual larger setting, and then I try and peel in. I find that helpful, or to start small and then peel the scene out. It's as the scene continues that I have to work on the description myself. Like inside the tavern, the layout is... What is the layout? I will do a whole round through when I'm reminding myself, okay, what are they tasting? What are they smelling? What are they seeing? What are they feeling? So on and so forth. That way I can really try and make it present. This is something that, as I always have to add more words in, is something I have to pay extra attention to. I think some writers inherently are better at description. Dogs, damn. But it's something I'm working on. I would love to know what you guys do. I also had attempted to do a gradient nail for the first time, and I'm gonna try again. I promise it's playful. Okay, so as I'm editing this chapter, I'm trying to take note of the sort of context clues that I already have. So part of this is coming from the last chapter, but I am talking about, you know, the sky has changed color, it's night. I talk about how they're wearing more clothes as it's colder out because the sun has set. They're kind of stepping on a mix of slush and ice. One thing I want to include, though I don't know that I need to. They're about to walk into the Galloping Pony, and there's going to be a just like smack in your face, like a wave? What do I want to use? A gust? I'll figure it out. Of smells that just hit them as they open the door, and you're just overwhelmed. So yeah, got some of that going on. Got some descriptions for the other characters that we're meeting here. But anyways, so it's just trying to use all of the senses, right? I never have to worry about putting in too much description or bogging it down, because that's just not the kind of writer I am. And that's just based off of what I like to read. So anyways, one other thing though, is it's time for some motherfucking coffee. I have not had any yet today, and that is, quite frankly, a travesty. What mug? I think we'll actually go with the moon phases. This is inspiring me though to think about maybe pulling books from my shelves and seeing how often those writers included like sense descriptors that weren't sight, because now I'm really curious. So anyways, let's move on to the next question, shall we? The person asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your creative confidence? And frankly, I think it changes day to day, potentially even hour to hour. I honestly don't even know how to answer this one, so I'm most excited for y'all to comment down below and let me know what you think. Can you even rate yourself? Would it fluctuate so much? Or have you noticed potentially a trend where you're more confident now than you were before? Or did you have all the confidence of youth and now it's one of those where, you know how you don't know what you don't know? As you learn more stuff, you just realize more things you don't know. Is it like you didn't realize how bad you were and then now you do? But you know what I mean, right? You're like, when you read your old work and you're like, I used to think this was so good. And then you're like, oh no, what does that mean about my stuff now that I think's good or whatever? I think that clearly shows improvement. So it should be a confidence booster. But yeah, I'm just curious what you guys think. I had been doing better about using my reusable bags, and then I just keep forgetting to put them back in my car, and then I forget. So if I could just achieve that step, putting them back into the car, or making it a habit of putting them in the car every time I go out, just because I will stop at HEB, that would be better. Also, HEB's SoFlo constantly does coupons, so I got 2 personal pizzas for like $6, and they're good. They're real good. And on top of all that, I still have not packed for our Vegas trip, and there's not going to be time tomorrow because we have to leave the house at like 3:30 a.m. in order to get there, and the line has been crazy recently for flights, so I gotta pack today too. That's fine. It's fine. It's all good. It's coming down sideways, quickly flooding. And then, not even bright and early, we were off to the airport. I hadn't been to the airport in a while, obviously, and so it was kind of a surreal experience seeing all of it again since I used to go so often. I did, however, have some books that I downloaded while I was at the airport and using their Wi-Fi from the library, and I started reading Zen and the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. I'm gonna do a whole other video on this, but I really loved it, or I've been loving it. I'm about 60% of the way through so far, and it was definitely the perfect sort of distracting airplane read. From however many thousand feet up in the air, we did get to see night change into morning, which was really wonderful. We also had a layover, so we hung out in the Dallas airport for a bit. I used to live in Dallas, so there was kind of a flood of memories being back at that airport, though they did have a new sort of art structure that changed colors that I was very mesmerized by. But then it was time to board for our final flight into Las Vegas, another city that I've lived in and that I've visited multiple times over since, even since being an adult. But I had some things on my list that I really wanted to get done that I hadn't done before, namely Fremont, a couple restaurants. But it's always surreal being back there because there's a big change in, you know, the weather clearly from San Antonio to Vegas. And so I just love being back and seeing all the rocks on the sides instead of grass and trees. That dry heat versus the humid heat. Walking all around there was a trip. But if you watched any of my previous writing vlogs, you might know that I since the pandemic have become obsessed with cooking shows. One of them that I love is indeed Hell's Kitchen, so could not pass up the opportunity to eat there. We ended up splitting most of our food, but we had to get the scallops, we had to get the beef Wellington and the sticky toffee pudding. It was incredible. Well, of course, that wasn't the only Gordon Ramsay restaurant that we ate at. We were staying at Caesar's Palace, so we had a restaurant there which was pretty good. I just had to drink because I was full, but we did go to Gordon Ramsay Burger, which was phenomenal. Was so good. We checked out the Caesar's pool, which was crazy and insane and huge and not at all what I expected, and I don't know what my expectations were. I will say that just walking around Vegas is one of my favorite things. I love people watching. As a writer, it is one of my favorite pastimes. I like to include it as like quote unquote part of my job. I like overhearing conversations. I like seeing how people interact. I like taking in the sights with other people and figuring out what they notice versus what I notice and just kind of having those discussions. We walked in and out of all the other casinos. The Bellagio's always really pretty and I loved their current installment of stuff. But then it was time to head on to Fremont. So that is the thing in Vegas that I've never done before. You know, obviously when I was growing up there, I was too young to do that. But even since being back, I've only really stayed on the strip or like a little bit off the strip. But Fremont was, again, I don't know what I expected. But it was crazy. I didn't actually get to see anyone zip line, which you can do over the crowd. As someone who's scared of heights, it's probably never something I'm gonna do, but you could do it. Just walking through the area, it is so packed. You know, there's live entertainment going on all the time, like every other corner you turn to. The casinos themselves have my, I call it my grandma machine because in honor of my grandma, who used to come and visit us in Vegas all the time, we have a certain game that we play. You put in $21, you pull 7 times, and then you have to walk away, no matter whether you're up, down, whether the machine's quote unquote hot or whatever, you walk away. It did me good this time. I came away with a little bit of money. But all in all, I think what I just enjoy about Vegas, besides the people watching, is there's an excess, which is not something that obviously I want to participate in or would enjoy for more than a few days. But a few days at a time, it's just fun to be overwhelmed by your senses. If that makes sense. There's so many smells, whether you're in the casino, out of the casino, depending on the time of day. There's so many sights to take in, so much food to eat, so many people to run into, there's shows. Look, I just love Vegas. I will, however, say that Corgi Cash, the machine, did not do me good, even though it was adorable. So then it was time to journey back home. Once again, we had a stop, though we didn't change planes this time, so it was just kind of a nice flight. I read more of Ray Bradbury's book. I wrote in my notebook and I transferred those notes later, and it was just altogether a wonderful, phenomenal, very fun trip. I texted myself some ideas last night, so we're gonna open that up and get started. What you doing, baby girl? No, you know better than that. So as is probably already clear to you, I did not succeed in finishing chapter 3 before I left for Vegas. So we are continuing the journey now. I actually worked on it a little bit during my Patreon stream yesterday, and I'm hoping to finish it today during the stream. It's kind of taken over as my streaming project, not completely purposefully, but it's easier to have streaming projects where I can talk more openly about stuff. But I am up 800 words in an essay. I have all of the animals in here. But I figured while I was editing video stuff and listening to the masterclass, I would answer another question, which is, how do you know you're starting your book in the right place? The person says, I suck at beginnings and usually start with the end and then backtrack, which I think is a really interesting way to do it. I would be curious how many people start at the end and backtrack their way through their novel. I'm usually pretty good at beginnings, but I have struggled before, even just sort of like 45 minutes in story, if that makes sense. So I always use my superhero story as the example. My new adult superhero story, where originally I was trying to start it before we see our character, you know, become invisible for the first time. And I was trying to figure out where exactly that needed to take place. And I kept starting it just a little bit too early, and it took too much explaining almost before we got to the interesting, exciting part. And it's so much of a feel thing for me. When I go back to reread it, I often know in my little heart of hearts if the beginning's not working. I just can't always pinpoint why, and oftentimes it is because I started it at the wrong place. I've had that feeling in other stories before, but for the most part I usually kind of get it right. That's because the beginning is what typically comes to me. I know the before part of my character and the catalyst that sort of changes things. I know what their life was and what it will become. The journey of it becoming something and ending, at least within the story, is the part that tends to be harder for me, is pulling all of the elements together toward the end. But the start is, I'm like, yeah, of course, this is the character, this is what they're dealing with. For some reason, that part's easy. I think what might be a fun experiment to do is sort of attempt to start your story either a few days before or after what you'd originally planned, even 45 minutes before, like my example was, and just see if that feels more right to you than trying to do the same thing over and over. Because if you feel like something's not quite it, that's the clue. You know. But I sometimes struggle with this even with essays, where I'm like, where exactly should I start this? And what I've taken to doing is just starting where it flows out of me. And if I need to add more of an intro, I will, but oftentimes I can actually, it's just where it felt right originally. I just have to tune it up a little bit. The next person asks, how many books do you wish you could write in a year? And I have never thought of it that way. I don't know. Rather than a number, I feel like it's more a, how many books can I write that are still up to the quality that I want and that I don't feel as if I'm pushing myself too hard. Like, I want to challenge myself, but I don't want to feel like I don't want it to be a grind. I want it to be a sustainable sort of thing. And I guess also just enough to keep my readers happy. I think it might be incongruent with what I just said. So obviously one would take precedent, you know, my mental health over the other, but somewhere in there I think is the perfect answer. How many books that actually translates to, who knows?
Every day around the world, millions struggle with the same question. 2 exclamation point or not 2 exclamation point?
And that is 1,084 words for 9:44 this morning, and I am going to now switch over to the remaining bits of my Buddy Thieves chapter 3. I went on a run this morning, which was really nice, so I need to check that off my list. I have a couple things to check off, so I guess we'll do that first. For day one, done. Done. So basically, I have from this yellow bit and then on to finish, and I have to go back up to this red bit that I skipped during the stream because I could just not figure out how I wanted to do it. I think I'm just going to scrap that whole section and rewrite it because trying to finagle it and move stuff around is just not working. But I did want to answer this question, the second to last question, and these two are going to kind of tie in together. So what would you consider to be the biggest downside of being a writer? And I feel like it's the downside to being a creative in general, or trying to like make it, quote unquote, as a creative, which is just that making money from it can be hard. That's a tough thing to do. I think also, if even from like a hobby standpoint, getting someone to read your work can be tough. I know lots of self-published authors, I know lots of traditionally published authors where they're not getting a whole lot of reviews on their work, and that's something that I think we all want. At least with the traditional publishing side, you have the validation of having a publisher believing in your project enough to want to pick it up. That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to put a lot of money into it and all that stuff. So that can be a challenge, but you know, having other people read your work and it resonating with them, but just getting eyes on that can be tough. If you don't want anyone to read it, I think the hardest downside if you're a novelist is just how long it takes. But the other side to that particular coin is that the journey is so fun, right? So I guess maybe money, getting readers, and then just potentially the length of the project, which ties into the next question, which I will answer as I get some coffee. And this person says, writing usually has a long way to go till you reach your goal, end of the story. How do you cope with the insecurities concerning if your novel is worth it or if you will ever finish it? So I think this is such a good question and has been something that I've struggled with in the past. It's one of the reasons that I ended up getting more into baking and why I love baking so much is because there is a sense of immediate satisfaction. Like, I got the ingredients, I made the thing, and then I get to consume the thing. I get to eat the thing, and I get to immediately know if it's like good or not. And this is probably some kind of parallel here too. But often, even if it's not perfect, it's still pretty good. It's rare that I bake something that's just completely inedible and was a waste of time. Usually it just means I have a way to improve in the future. Much like writing, okay. As for if it's worth it or not, or knowing part of the way through if it's worth it, it took me finally finishing my first draft ever, however many years ago, to be like, okay, I got a sense of what that felt like. And ever since then, I've been able to measure if a draft or a story was going to be worth it to finish. And usually what I do is a little bit of a hack, and then if I still want to finish, I'll just use more brackets. So for the chapters that are really giving me trouble, I'll just bracket my way through them, and that way I can finish the concept, get it out of my brain, and return to it however many years later as a much more skilled writer. Often I ask myself if I got what I personally needed to out of the story. Did I succeed in telling what I wanted to tell? And usually I don't feel that way until I finish, but sometimes I do. And if I have told the part that I wanted to tell, if I've answered all the questions that I personally have, and I don't think that anybody else would ever want to read it, then that's okay. I can put it aside. I have done the thing. It's all right. This is the time that I will go ahead and shout out my It's Okay to Quit video where I talked about this concept too. V.E. Schwab, I love following her on Instagram. I will say that a million times over. I think she's so helpful in talking about how every time you start a new story or a new draft, you get a flood of those same insecurities. You just now have the confidence in the back of your brain to know I've felt this before and I've, you know, triumphed over these insecurities. That doesn't mean it still won't be hard. It doesn't mean you won't feel them, but you can go with that knowledge of you've done it. And I'll go back to the hack of using the brackets. If you need to get to that point, fill in the brackets, return to it. It's right out of order, try something new. And also, it is okay to quit. But now, I have my coffee. It is finally time to frickin' finish the dreaded red. All right, all it took was 87 words total. Oh, great. I gotta go fix that too. 87 words total, and more or less I have fixed the chapter. Woo! And I can send it off to David. But that's gonna be it for me on this very long video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please do comment down below, answer any or all of these questions that you would like to. I'm very curious about your thoughts. And as we are nearing the end of Camp NaNoWriMo, please also let me know how that is going for you. I think I'm going to include these words into my Camp NaNoWriMo project on the website as a whole, and now I can switch back to my vampire novellas. But thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you especially to some of my new patrons this month: Ashley Cobb, Zaina Cord, Chandra Arthur, Sassy Majesty, Jesse Wilbanks, and Gloria, and I will see y'all all very soon with a new video. Bye! Well, hello plane. But that's gonna be it for me on this very long vlog. Blog? Vlog? Video? Yes. Dogs, calm down.